When inflation satisfies 3%, then 4, then 6, most people just absorb it. They complain at the checkout, adjust their budgets, maybe switch to store brands. But when inflation compounds year after year and grocery prices double in under a decade, the math changes completely. Suddenly, the question isn't how to save a few dollars this week. The question is how to opt out of a system that's bleeding you dry. Here's what nobody talks about. Most crops don't beat inflation. You plant tomatoes, you spend money on seeds, soil, fertilizer, water. You harvest for one season and then you start over. The costs reset every single year. You're not building anything, you're just gardening. But there's a different category of crops, ones that actually get cheaper the longer you grow them. We're talking about plants that eliminate their own input costs over time, that multiply themselves, that improve your soil instead of depleting it, and that produce more food in year 5 than they did in year 1. These are the crops that don't just keep pace with inflation, they reverse it. If you're watching this, you already understand that grocery prices aren't coming back down. The Federal Reserve can raise rates, politicians can make promises, but the structural forces driving food costs higher aren't going anywhere. So here's the deal. Hit subscribe to Recession Roots right now, because by the time most people figure out that their grocery bill is a permanent leak in their budget, you'll already have crops in the ground that literally cost you nothing to maintain. These 5 crops work in growing zones 3 through 8, meaning most of North America. They're chosen specifically because their cost curve inverts over time. The longer you grow them, the less they cost and the more they produce. Let's start with number 5. Number 5, garlic. The crop that pays you back in cloves. Most people buy garlic at the grocery store without thinking twice. It is cheap, right? A few bulbs for a couple dollars. But here is what those people do not realize. That cheap garlic is mostly imported from China, treated with chemicals to prevent sprouting, and has been sitting in storage for months. And the price keeps creeping up. 5 years ago, you paid 80 cents per bulb. Now it is closer to $2 for anything decent. Here is the recession math that changes everything. 1 bulb of garlic contains 8 to 12 cloves. Each clove you plant becomes a new bulb. So 1 bulb becomes 10. 10 becomes 100. 100 becomes 1,000. You buy garlic once and you never buy it again. That is not an exaggeration. That is how garlic works. You are not growing a crop. You are running a multiplication engine. But here is what makes garlic genuinely cheaper every year you grow it. Garlic improves your soil. It is allelopathic, meaning it releases compounds that suppress weeds and deter pests. Plant garlic in a bed for 3 years straight, and that bed becomes cleaner, healthier, and more productive. You are not adding inputs. You are reducing them. The crop is literally doing work for you while it grows. Growing garlic is almost impossible to mess up. In fall, about 4 to 6 weeks before the ground freezes, break apart your bulbs and plant individual cloves pointy end up, about 2 inches deep and 6 inches apart. Mulch heavily with straw or leaves. Then ignore it all winter. In spring, green shoots emerge. By midsummer, when the lower leaves start browning, you harvest. Cure the bulbs in a dry, shaded spot for 2 weeks, and they will store for 6 to 8 months without refrigeration. Seed saving is not even a separate step. The garlic you harvest is the garlic you replant. Just set aside your biggest, healthiest bulbs each year, and your stock improves over time. After 3 years, you will have garlic perfectly adapted to your specific soil and climate. Garlic you could never buy at any store. Why it is on the list? Garlic is the perfect example of a crop that inverts the cost curve. Year 1, you buy bulbs. Year 2, your bulbs are free. Year 3 and beyond, you have surplus to trade, sell, or gift, and your soil is better than when you started. In an inflationary economy where every input costs more each year, garlic costs less. Number 4, potatoes. The calorie crop that multiplies faster than prices rise. Potatoes get dismissed as boring. They're cheap at the store, they're heavy to grow, and everyone thinks they know how to cook them. But here's what the recession-minded gardener understands. Potatoes are the single highest calorie yield per square foot of any common garden crop. And unlike most vegetables, potatoes multiply. One seed potato produces 8 to 12 potatoes. Those 12 potatoes become your seed stock for next year. One potato this spring becomes 140 potatoes 2 years from now, becomes over 1,000 the year after that. The math is exponential. Meanwhile, potato prices at the grocery store follow inflation upward in a straight line. Your homegrown potatoes follow a cost curve downward towards zero. But here's the part most gardeners miss entirely. You don't need to buy seed potatoes from a catalogue. Any organic potato that sprouts in your pantry is a seed potato. Those eyes growing on that forgotten potato in the back of your cupboard, that's free planting stock. Cut it into chunks with 2 or 3 eyes each, let the cuts dry for a day, and plant them. You've just turned kitchen waste into a calorie-producing asset. Growing potatoes is flexible and forgiving. Plant in spring after the last hard frost, about 4 inches deep and 12 inches apart. As the plants grow, hill soil or mulch around the stems to encourage more tuber production. Harvest when the plants flower and start dying back, usually around 90 days for early varieties and 120 for storage types. Cure them in a cool, dark place for a week and they'll store for 4 to 6 months. Here's the recession advantage most people overlook. Potatoes don't just produce food, they break up compacted soil. They're often used as a first crop in new garden beds because their root systems loosen and aerate the ground for whatever comes next. So while you're growing calories, you're also improving your garden infrastructure. That's 2 returns on 1 investment. Why it's on the list. Potatoes deliver more calories per square foot than almost any other crop. They multiply exponentially from year to year. They cost nothing after your first season, and they improve your soil while they grow. When grocery prices are rising 5% annually and your potato costs are falling towards zero, the gap between those 2 lines is money in your pocket. Number 3, Jerusalem artichokes. The perennial that outproduces inflation permanently. This is where we shift from annual crops that get cheaper over time to perennials that eliminate costs entirely. Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes, are a set-it-and-forget-it calorie crop that produces more food every single year with 0 inputs after planting. Here's the math that makes economists nervous. 1 sunchoke tuber planted in spring produces 5 to 10 pounds of tubers by fall. You didn't replant, you didn't fertilize, you didn't do anything. The plant just produced 10 times its weight in food. Now leave half those tubers in the ground. Next year, each one produces another 5 to 10 pounds. By year 3, you have a permanent patch generating 30, 50, 100 pounds of calorie-dense tubers annually. Your input cost after year 1 is 0, literally 0. Meanwhile, what's happening at the grocery store? Prices keep climbing. That bag of potatoes that cost $3 is now $4.50. The sweet potatoes are $6. Organic anything is through the roof, but your sunchoke patch doesn't care about supply chains, fuel costs, or inflation. It just keeps producing. Growing sunchokes requires almost no effort. Plant tubers in early spring, 4 to 6 inches deep, about 12 inches apart. They tolerate poor soil, drought, shade, and complete neglect. They grow 6 to 10 feet tall with bright yellow flowers in late summer. After the first frost kills the tops, dig up tubers as needed throughout fall and winter. The ground is your storage, no root cellar required. Here's the detail that makes sunchokes genuinely recession-proof. They're native to North America. They evolved here. They don't need you to baby them through cold snaps or dry spells. While other crops fail in difficult years, sunchokes just keep producing. They're adapted to survive without you, why it's on the list. Sunchokes represent the ultimate inflation hedge, a one-time investment that produces increasing returns forever. No seeds to buy, no fertilizer to apply, no replanting to schedule. In a world where every other cost is rising, sunchokes are a fixed asset that appreciates in productivity while costing nothing to maintain. That's not gardening, that's financial engineering with plants. Number 2, asparagus, the 20-year investment that pays dividends every spring. Most people think of asparagus as a luxury vegetable, expensive at the store, difficult to grow, too fancy for survival gardening. Every one of those assumptions is wrong. Asparagus is one of the most economically rational crops you can plant, precisely because it produces for 2 decades from a single planting. Let's do the inflation math. A bundle of asparagus at the grocery store costs $4 to $6 and gives you maybe 2 servings. One established asparagus bed, 10 feet by 4 feet, produces 10 to 20 pounds of spears per year. At store prices, that's $80 to $150 worth of asparagus annually for 20 years. From plants you bought once, now factor in inflation. If asparagus prices rise just 3% per year, which is conservative, that same bundle costs $8 in year 10 and $11 in year 20. But your homegrown asparagus still costs the same thing it cost in year 1. Nothing. The gap between those lines gets wider every single year. That's the power of perennial economics. Here's what makes asparagus special for recession planning. It emerges in early spring, often before the last frost, when nothing else in your garden is producing. After a long winter of stored food, dried beans, and root vegetables, fresh asparagus is nutrition your body desperately needs. Vitamins A, C, E, A, folate, all arriving when they matter most. Planting asparagus requires patience, but not skill. Dig a trench 6 to 8 inches deep. Lay crowns at the bottom, 12 to 18 inches apart. Cover with 2 inches of soil and gradually fill the trench as plants grow. Mulch heavily every fall. Don't harvest the first 2 years, let the plants establish deep root systems. Starting in year 3, harvest spears for 6 to 8 weeks every spring by snapping them off at ground level. Then, let the remaining spears grow into feathery foliage that feeds the roots for next year. Why it's on the list? Asparagus is a 20-year asset that appreciates in value every single year because the price of store-bought asparagus keeps rising while your production cost stays at 0. In year 1, you're investing. By year 5, you're profiting. By year 15, the returns are absurd. No annual crop can match that math. Number 1. Fruit trees. The ultimate inflation hedge that your grandchildren will still be harvesting. Everything else on this list gets cheaper over time. Fruit trees get cheaper and simultaneously more productive. They're not just inflation resistant. They're inflation reversing assets that compound in value for decades. Here's the math that most people never consider. A single Mache apple tree produces 200 to 400 pounds of fruit per year. At grocery store prices of $2 per pound, that's $400 to $800 worth of apples annually. From one tree that you planted once for 40 years or more. Now apply inflation. If apple prices rise 4% per year, that same $2 pound costs $4 in year 18 and $8 in year 36. But your tree doesn't care. It just keeps producing the same 200 to 400 pounds. The economic value of your harvest doubles, then quadruple, while your costs remain fixed at 0. But here's what makes fruit trees genuinely recession-proof in ways other crops can't match. Trees require 0 annual inputs once established. No seeds to buy, no fertilizer if you mulch with compost. No replanting, ever. After the first 3 years, your only job is harvesting. That's it. Every other cost in your life is rising. Your fruit trees are locked in at 0. Planting fruit trees is a one-time effort with permanent returns. Choose varieties suited to your climate and chill hours. Dig a hole twice as wide as the root ball. Plant at the same depth it grew in the nursery. Water deeply the first 2 years. Mulch around the base but not touching the trunk. Prune annually to shape the tree and improve air flow. Most fruit trees begin producing in year 3 to 5, reach full production by year 8 to 10, and keep producing for 30 to 50 years. Here's the detail that separates recession planners from everyone else. Fruit trees aren't just food, they're infrastructure. They create microclimates that help other plants grow. They build soil through leaf drop. They provide shade that reduces cooling costs. They increase property value. You're not just planting a crop, you're installing a permanent system that returns value across multiple dimensions for generations. Why it's number one. Fruit trees represent the most extreme cost inversion possible in a garden. High upfront investment, zero ongoing cost, increasing production, and a harvest that becomes more economically valuable every single year as inflation pushes store prices higher. In year 1, you plant. In year 10, you're harvesting hundreds of dollars worth of fruit for free. In year 30, your grandchildren are still picking apples from trees you planted during a recession that everyone else has forgotten. 5 crops. That's it. You don't need a complex system or a giant budget. You need plants that work with time instead of against it. Plants that multiply themselves, improve their own growing conditions, and produce more value the longer they're in the ground. Here's your reality check. Inflation isn't temporary. The Federal Reserve isn't going to fix your grocery bill. The only way to beat a system designed to extract more from you every year is to build assets that operate outside that system. These 5 crops don't care about monetary policy. They just keep producing. The time to plant is now, not because collapse is coming tomorrow, but because these crops need time to reach their full potential. The asparagus you plant this spring won't hit peak production for 5 years. The fruit tree you put in the ground today won't produce serious harvests until 2030. But when they do, you'll be eating for free while everyone around you is paying double what they pay now.